A vengeful mother, an escaped slave, and a mercenary fighter find themselves on a collision course with destiny in the Nordic-inspired fantasy epic The Shadow of the Gods. That's the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF180. Hello again, everyone. Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you for joining me. John Gwynne is probably not what you would call a great innovator, but he's something just as good, which often gets overlooked in critical circles. A solid, reliable storyteller. The Shadow of the Gods, his first book in a brand new trilogy, The Bloodsworn, is the kind of unputdownable adventure you might remember reading as a kid past your bedtime with a flashlight under your bed covers. Remember that? Okay, just one more chapter, just one more. I'll go to bed, just one more chapter. There was never just one more chapter. Gwynne's story is set on the continent of Vigrid, in a secondary world inspired by Norse legends and Scandinavian folklore. 300 years in the past, the gods of this land wiped each other out in their own Ragnarok, with such devastating results that it opened a crack in the world, releasing monsters called Vesen across the landscape. The story presents us with a harsh and violent world where cold winds blow across desolate hills and valleys and along winding fjords. Yet, people manage to scrabble together a society in Vigrid that functions under the governance of local jarls who keep slaves called the Tainted, magic users in whose veins the blood of one or another of the vanquished gods flows to enforce their authority. Vigrid also has a queen, Helka, who is attempting to unite the country by getting all the jarls to swear fealty to her. Gwynne's world building here is not only Ridley Scott levels of immersive, he has crafted it with great care to appeal to the widest range of potential readers. Gwynne himself is a Viking reenactor, so he knows a thing or two about a thing or two when it comes to shield walls and war bands, and his richly realized setting will draw in fans not only from TV shows like Vikings and The Last Kingdom, but from games like God of War and Skyrim, not to mention appealing to history buffs as well. Gwynne also chooses wisely in not overloading us with viewpoint characters or piling on the plot. We get only 3, with the story's emotional payload pretty evenly distributed among them. Orca is a former warrior who has retired from the battlefield and now lives a bucolic life on a farm with her devoted husband, Thorkel, whose love has a way of softening her rougher edges, and their small son, Brekka. When we read tender scenes between her and her family, we know deep in our bones this life of love and peace cannot last. After all, a rash of child stealing has been plaguing their local community. But their Jarl seems more interested in cementing allegiance to Queen Helka than protecting the people from immediate threats. Sure enough, circumstances soon find Orca in pursuit of her own kidnapped son, with blades in both hands and bloodlust in her heart. Miles away, Elvar is a young woman who has walked away from her royal lineage as the daughter of a jarl, where all she had to aspire to was being married off to secure one of her father's political allegiances. Now she is free to pursue her own battle fame as a member of a mercenary warband, the Battlegrim, under the benevolent command of Agnar, who feels more to her like a true father should. But the Battlegrim end up completing a job that will dramatically change all their destinies, as a woman they were sent to capture is in possession of a secret that could bring wealth and battle fame beyond their wildest dreams, if they survive. Finally, Varg is a thrall who has murdered his master and escaped to hunt down those who bought and then cruelly killed his little sister. For this, he needs the services of a tainted mage who might do some spell casting to locate her killers. Through sheer dumb luck mixed with a little audacity, he finds himself a probationary member of a famed warband called the Bloodsworn. While avenging his sister is always foremost in his mind, Varg nonetheless gains his first experience of freedom, brotherhood, and true friendship, the ability to feel loyalty by his own free choice to companions he cares about. Gwynne is entirely content to let events in this book take their time unfolding. It's the best kind of slow burn storytelling because while we're honestly most of the way through the book before anything like a clear overarching plot takes shape, we're never bored, simply because these characters are so compelling and their experiences so tactile. Gwynne displays his usual top-notch craft at sculpting fully realized human beings onto the scaffolding of such stock fantasy characters as runaway slaves, or disillusioned fighters, or vengeful parents. The entire world of this story just takes gradual shape as we move through it. And it isn't even until the tail end that Gwynne establishes any links between his three heroes. Orca will probably have the most appeal to readers, but I'm partial to Elvar, who is motivated not merely by revenge, but an earnest desire to better herself and shape her own destiny. That women in this world have no less social standing than men, fighting in the shield walls right alongside the men, is simply taken as a given. Varg's story at first seems to have less emotional urgency than Orca's, because whereas we spend time with Orca's family at the beginning, Varg's sister is already dead before we meet him. But his arc is fulfilled not by avenging her, but by discovering the first sense of self-worth and belonging he has ever known among the Bloodsworn. If you like bone-crunching violence, you've come to the right place. But, yeah, while you could probably argue that Gwynne could use a dose of Joe Abercrombie's sense of humor amidst all the carnage, Gwynne still rises well above the standard issue grimdark in giving The Shadow of the Gods as much heart as it's got blood and guts. And there you have it. That's all I've got time for on this episode of SFF180. I want to thank you again for joining me. Remember, the most important thing, these are reviews. You're not ever going to agree with me all the time, but if you enjoyed watching, then please, by all means, slam that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe, because that helps the channel to grow. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store, and I do have a Patreon, but at this present time, I'm trying to encourage people, if you're in a money donating mood, please don't send anything to me. Instead, find an online aid organization that is sending help to the people in Ukraine right now who are being horribly victimized by this absolutely evil invasion that's taking place. So, yeah, do something for them, please, because I'm doing fine right now. But if you are one of my patrons, then by all means, please accept my heartfelt thanks. I use the Patreon money to pay Matt Olson, who is my wonderfully gifted channel artist who does all of my great thumbnails for me. The one for this video, I think he really outdid himself. So thank you once again for that additional support. Greatly appreciated. I want to thank all the rest of you guys for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube. And until I see all of you next time, please stay safe and healthy and happy reading.